Hello and welcome everybody. My name's Catherine Rooks from the EMEA Security Partner Development Team here at Microsoft, and I will be your host for today. Thank you for joining us for the Microsoft Security Defender for Cloud Partner Airlift. Today's session should be about 4.5 hours long. Before we start, a few housekeeping items to share with you first. If you joined us without registering for the event, please register now with the link in the window. We will be recording today's session, but we'll only be sharing the link with those who've registered. So please do so if you have not done so already. We also appreciate you adhering to the Microsoft Event Code of Conduct that will also be posted in the chat window. Throughout today's event, please feel free to post questions in the chat window, as we have many experts on hand to answer them as promptly as possible for you. Now, on to our speakers for today. As you can see from the slide, if we could please move to the slide with the speakers, we have a great lineup from engineering to our global black belt teams and experts from our security partner development technical specialists. The speakers will all introduce themselves at the start of their sessions and share a bit more background. And now on to the agenda for today's show. So we're going to cover lots of interesting topics for you. We're going to start with an overview of multi-cloud security and opportunity with CNAPP. We're going to continue with demos on Defender for Cloud and share our product vision and strategy with you. We're also going to go over building a practice around Defender for Cloud, including pricing, running proof of concepts for your customers and guidance around here, and parameters for a successful POC. We're then going to move to our global black belt team, who are going to share with you some of the best practices on solution designs, architectures, and also what they're hearing and discussing with our customers. And then we're going to close with a Q&A session, so to give you the chance to answer questions from all of our speakers. We will take questions that have been answered through the chat and obviously additional questions at the end. And to start today's session, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Samba Koita, who is going to give an overview of multi-cloud and opportunity with CNAPP. Over to you, please, Samba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Samba, as Catherine said. I'm the Global Partner Technical Strategy Manager, and my role is really to work with partners, more strategic partners at Microsoft, and help them build services around our security platform. So before we dive into our main topic today, which is CNAPP, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the shared responsibility model. And I think in this audience, we will all probably agree on that, right? But just like to reiterate a little bit, that really has a cloud service provider, Microsoft, if a customer is really moving his workloads, right, being IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, there are some of the responsibilities that fall behind for Microsoft. But if you look at, for example, a SaaS application, right, so all the administration and data and security really are the responsibility for the customer. The reason why I want to reiterate that information is that usually when we have some conversation with some customers and partners, this really comes a lot. Really, where is the line between Microsoft responsibility and the customer responsibility? Because obviously, it's not only because you moved your workload to the cloud that they are secure by default, right? And so we are going to talk about some of the solutions that Microsoft has to offer to really secure not only the migration, but also the workloads that you already have in the cloud. But this will require an action from the customer or the partner helping the customer as well. All right. And on the cloud security front, also, I think we all agree on that, that this is really more important than ever, with customers being in their digital transformation journey, really having more and more resources that are migrated to the cloud, which really changed the dynamic from what we used to have when everything was secure behind two-layer firewalls, fully quote-unquote protected by our team on premises. So moving to the cloud has some challenges as well that we'll be able to address with different solutions that we're going to talk about. So by moving to the cloud, the applications are also being more and more complex in terms of the development. So it's not only one database and one application and that's it. So now we're talking about serverless functions. We're talking about storing keys in a key vault, for example. So it's really getting more and more complex, and by extension, as the application development is complex, then being able to secure that also require specialized tools. And finally, there is also the regulatory landscape, really depending on the customer and the vertical. If it's in the healthcare with HIPAA regulation, for example, or financial sector, it's really important to get the visibility into the infrastructure and also how to comply with some of those regulations. All right. And by having discussion with the customers, we also see that there are three key trends that are really top of mind for them. Really, it's the first one is being able to develop and operate scalable applications in the cloud. And actually, according to our survey, 54% of enterprise don't really integrate security in the DevOps pipeline, right? So that's why in the industry today, we are talking about shift left. It's really all about clearing security early in the development of an application, as opposed to shipping the application and then having some pen testing to detect vulnerabilities and solving them as well, right? And visibility into security and compliance, this is also a very big focus for almost all customers, really understanding what is this security posture. And finally, I think this is probably the most important, right? Being able to not only detect, but also protect against increasing and sophisticated attacks, when we know the average cost of a cyber breach. So these numbers are for 2021. But if you look at 2022 or 2023, the numbers will potentially be higher, right? So I just want to give few examples of a kill chain and how some of the vulnerabilities can be exploited by the threat actor. If you've been working with Microsoft with us for a long period of time now, you probably knew Contoso, which is becoming now a very famous organization. But just giving this example, right? And there are mainly three questions that we need to ask in this particular scenario, right? So we ask, do we really have an effective detection and response tool in the cloud? So specifically in the cloud, because the challenge in the cloud are a little bit different than what we have in the end user. And also, do you know where the sensitive data is? This is also very critical. As we're gonna talk about a little bit later, Microsoft has the Purview platform, which is all about data security and data governance with sensitivity level. And so we will be able to use the same sensitive information type to be able to detect if there are some sensitive files or information across our multi-cloud environment. And finally, can we describe, how effective our governance policy is? So here you kind of have two main use cases. So the first one, and again, a lot of applications rely on open source components, right, to run. And I think this was really a wake-up call for everybody in the industry with the Log4j vulnerability with Apache and the critical impact that it had in a lot of organizations. So in the first use case, let's imagine that we have a vulnerable management software, right? But that relies on open source. And so an attacker could exploit this vulnerability to get access to a virtual machine with managed identity. And with this permission, can access AWS relational database, for example, extract a file and put them in a S3 bucket that he will be able to leverage and use later. So in this first use case, we can see that sensitive information in the organization that were stored in the relation database in AWS now are leaked, and the attacker are able to get access to them, right? The second use case is something that we also see more and more often, and not only on the container side, right? Is an attacker being able to exploit vulnerability into container registry or even on open source as well, to be able to do some crypto mining. So this can work on the containers, but this is also something that we see if you have, for example, a Windows server or a Linux server that has its management port directly exposed to the internet. In fact, this is a quick test that we can all do. If you have a virtual machine on Azure, you create a new one, chances are that in the next few hours, you will see folks trying to run some scans, some brute force, really get access to the machine. And once they have access to this virtual machine, they'll most likely try to see if there are some sensitive data, or if not, just use it really for crypto mining. And so, as we will see later with our Defender for Cloud, and so what is the CNAPP, we really have different capabilities that can help in every stages of those kill chain that I'm talking about. All right, I couldn't really dive into the Defender for Cloud and CNAPP without really talking on a very high level on the Microsoft security portfolio. You are probably already familiar with the different product that we have here. So this 6 product family with our XDR or Sentinel, which is our cloud native SIEM, and the other products that you have as well in this slide. And by having a conversation with customers, we also see that most of them are in a journey to reduce the complexity in their secure operations center, and also reduce the number of individual point solutions that they have in their infrastructure, right? And so at Microsoft, we are really in this journey to provide a platform that is natively integrated that will give hand-to-hand visibility for security operations to be able to detect rapidly some threats, with, of course, our Copilot for Security, which is our generative AI-based solution at the core, right? The Microsoft platform, and this will be the last sentence here, is not, of course, only protecting Microsoft ecosystem. I really want to stress that enough. We are a multi-cloud solution and also multi-operating system. So which means that we can run on Windows, but also on Linux, on macOS, and even mobile devices if you look at our endpoint protection solution. And the Defender for Cloud, our main topic today, is also a multi-cloud type of solution that can give you visibility not only on Azure, but also on third-party cloud services and also hybrid platform, right? So when we talk about cloud security and protection needs, it's really around those key pillars, right? So we already talked a little bit about DevSecOps, so integrating security early on in the development life cycle, getting visibility on the cloud security posture, being able to protect the workload themselves, right, being servers or containers, right? Having also this capability for entitlement management. So I just want to pause here for a second. For the cloud infrastructure entitlement management, so we have a solution which is now called Entra Permission Management that is coming from an acquisition of a company called CloudNox. Sorry. And what CloudNox does and what we have in key capabilities is really for customers that are on the zero trust journey. As we all know, there is one strong pillar, which is least privilege. And so this solution really helps understand what are the permissions assigned to a particular administrator versus the permission that are really used, right? And so the solution will be based not only on permission assignment only, but also on the actual usage of the permission itself, being administrator or global admin or others. So this really helps reduce the attack surface by assigning to a particular administrator just enough permission that they need to do their work, right? And of course, you also have here the network security with solutions like firewalls and network segmentation as well. So now in the industry today, we all talk about CNAPP, and our Defender for Cloud solution is a CNAPP solution as well. And CNAPP stands for Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. It's really mainly a unified security and compliance solution and capabilities that really helps prevent, detect, and respond to modern cloud and threats across the entire application lifecycle. So we'll talk about the key pillars that you can see here, the DevSecOps, the security posture management, the workload, the cloud infrastructure entitlement management, the network security. So these are actually the definition of Gartner. And for each of those pillars, we have a Microsoft capability in the Defender for Cloud product family that can really help solve some problems there. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud is really our CNAPP, so our Cloud Native Application Protection platform that can help get visibility across, code, for example, compute, identity, data storage in a hybrid and multi-cloud environment. All right. So now let's dive in a little bit into the different capabilities in our Microsoft CNAPP, in Defender for Cloud. So as you can see here in the slides, we have a dedicated section for unifying DevOps security management with native integrations, with, for example, GitHub Advanced Security, GitLab, Azure DevOps, really to be able to spot if there are even vulnerabilities in the code itself, so in the application development itself, and we can even go and send some recommendation directly to the developer, saying that there are some things that need to be changed to increase the overall security of the application itself, right? We also have a platform and a function security tool here on the security posture management. So this is the CSPM enhanced, of course, by the our generative AI platform, which is Copilot for Security, that we're going to lightly talk about as well. And finally, protecting the cloud workloads, which really stands for CWP, right? So in the Microsoft Defender for Cloud and in our CNAPP, you have some integrated insights that will surface in the customer secure score, for example, or recommendations, right, across application security, ESAM, cloud entitlement management, sensitive data protection, network protection as well. And the Defender for Cloud and CNAPP platform is also natively integrated with our SIEM solution, which is Sentinel. We have also announced, I think it's several weeks ago, that the alerts from the Defender for Cloud will also now surface in the Microsoft Defender XDR portal. So the security tool and security portal that you all use and love, now you also start seeing the alerts coming from Defender for Cloud, which really will give an end-to-end and complete view for the security analyst that is working on an incident. And this information from Defender for Cloud will also surface, in the attack story, for example, really giving this end-to-end perspective as well. The Defender for Cloud solution also has some integration with ServiceNow, for example, for ticketing, and also some open APIs that you can use and leverage to connect third-party applications as well. All right. So as I said previously, CNAPP is relatively new market terminology, right? And so this is really our journey. So we already had Defender for Cloud, and prior Defender for Cloud, it was called Azure Security Center, for those of you who remember. But in November 2022 at Ignite, we announced the Defender CSPM for Azure, AWS, and also Defender for DevOps that we will a little bit talk about as well. And then, as you can see here, it was really a journey for us when we gradually announced new solutions. For example, in April 2023, the launch of Defender for APIs, at Black Hat, the multi-cloud expansion to also cover GCP in Defender CSPM, and most recently, in November 2023, the insights coming from intra-permission management that are now surfacing in the Defender for Cloud with improved API security posture management, and probably one of the most disruptive technology, which is Copilot for security, that is also coming to Defender for Cloud as well. So as you can see, we've been really in high pace innovation across our CNAPP and Defender for Cloud solution. And as you will also see later in the roadmap section, we are also continuously improving and adding new features and capabilities there as well. All right. And so just to finish on that, in the initial introduction, this is the numbers coming from Forrester studies where Defender for Cloud can really help increase savings and ultimately also reduce organizational risk. If you're interested, we can send the Forrester studies to you. But overall, these are some of the numbers that we see. And of course, there are some industry validation. So if you want to go ahead and read, so yeah, we have all the links that you can go, and some of the slides will be shared as well after this airlift. So basically, you will have the Forrester, the Frost Sullivan, and also others that will also give you a better idea of the different capabilities that we have, and also what the industry is thinking about the Microsoft Defender for Cloud platform. All right, so now let's dive into the first pillar of the Defender for Cloud solution that we're going to talk about today, which is the cloud security posture management. Right. So for all of our customers that have a subscription, there is a free version of CSPM that really stands for Security Posture Management, right? That provides asset inventory and secure score analysis, some advanced remediation as well, and the ability to be able to export the data out of different reporting, right, or even integrate them with Power BI. So for every customer, they will have this foundational CSPM offering that will give them some visibility across their environment. Now, if you want to go a little bit more in details about the data that we can collect and present to the customers, and also on the features, so there is a paid version of Defender CSPM, as you can see here, with additional capabilities, right? Like agentless vulnerability scanning. I really do love this feature because customers don't really like having yet another agent that will deploy in their systems, knowing that usually there are also some capacity constraints, some CPU power, and many others. So installing an agent is not always the right thing to do, right? So we are coming here with this agentless vulnerability scanning that can really help us get the vulnerability data on the applications that are on a particular server or an operating system, for example, without really having the need to deploy any agent. So this is really a very, I think, very powerful feature that a lot of customers are also starting leveraging now, right? So we also have another cool feature that I also very love, pretty much is the contextual cloud security and risk prioritization with features like attack path analysis, right? And I have a section later where we'll dive in a little bit more on the attack path, but basically it's really having a graph that shows the different interconnection to complement in organization and really helping understand the attack surface and the quick way basically an attacker could use to exploit and get access to your infrastructure. And of course, there are more regulatory compliance than industry benchmark that will be available for the paid version of CSPM. And as I was saying earlier, it's also important to understand in this multi-cloud environment where your sensitive data are really. And so with this paid version of Defender CSPM, this also gives the ability to discover the sensitive information based on the same SITs, so sensitive information type, that customers are already leveraging in other Microsoft tools like Purview. Okay, so now in the free version, this will give you here, as I said earlier, so you have the secure score, 450 plus out of the box recommendation as well, and the ability to manage the cloud security compliance with continuous assessment of resources across multi-cloud. This is probably the fifth time that I'm saying multi-cloud, but really want to insist that this solution is not only for Azure, but also protects AWS, GCP, and also even hybrid workloads as well. All right. So now I want to zoom as well a little bit on the data aware security posture management, which is available in the paid version of our Defender CSPM. It is really agentless, so this part is also very important. We are not installing anything additional in the customer environment, right? But we are able to automatically discover the data state. This is something that we covered as well. And at the end, really the most important thing is once we discover that there are some potential risk and data being exposed, is really being able to fix that with other recommendations where we will also rely on partners like yourself to help the customer to solve the problem, or with some very easy and fix that we call quick fix, actually, that we can just go and say, hey, please go and apply this recommendation for me. And so this is the security graph that I was talking about earlier that really helps understand with the sensitivity data on top, really what are the most critical assets in my organization. We all know that a server that is exposed on the internet does not necessarily pose the same risk that a server that has no management port. So we are really taking the insights not only from the ESAM platform, which is our attack surface management solution, external attack surface management solution, which is Defender for ESM, but also insight coming from our team on the permission side, if there is any link with the sensitive data as well. So this will really be connected and give you this graph that you can query also to understand, based on the particular vulnerability, for example, if there are any servers that are vulnerable and that can be exploited by a malicious actor, for example, right? So I think in the interest of time, we'll just move on to the next slide. But if you want to know more about the cloud security graph, more than happy to send you more documentation about that later. All right. So with that, I would like to pass the mic over to Litus. Litus, over to you.
Thanks, Samba. That was a great session. Hey, folks. My name is Litus D'Souza. I am a product manager on the security team. I lead the partner strategy for Defender Cloud, and in my role, I work closely with partners like you to drive success around Defender for Cloud. I'm really excited for this session. I'll mostly be covering the workload protection plans in this session. And I'm looking forward to working with you all in the future to drive success around Defender for Cloud. And hopefully we'll also see you all in the future sessions that we have planned around deep dives of each of these sections. So without further ado, I'll jump to my section of workload protection. So with workload protection, you get threat protection for all layers of your cloud and on premises. Microsoft Threat Intelligence analyzes trillions of signals every day from new and emerging threats, and Microsoft Defender for Cloud provides alerts for all these threats. These alerts are all mapped through the MITRE ATT&CK tactics framework. Microsoft partnered closely with MITRE on this and had a lot of input while designing this framework. These alerts help you identify and remediate vulnerabilities before they're exploited. Defender for Cloud enables you to strengthen your security posture. This means that it helps you identify and perform hardening tasks recommended as security best practices and implement them across your machines, data services, and apps. This includes managing and enforcing your security policies and making sure your virtual machines, servers, PaaS services are compliant. Defender for Cloud provides you with the tools you need from a bird's eye perspective for all your workloads with a focused visibility on your network security as well. So with so many services offering security benefits, it's often hard to see the difference. So I wanted to quickly call out how Microsoft is different. Microsoft Defender for Cloud is uniquely positioned to provide complete protection in all the cloud across your multi-cloud as well as on-premises assets, with built-in capabilities with no deployment needed as the capabilities are built into the resource provisioning process. We provide multi-cloud and hybrid support through agentless onboarding for posture management, as Samba was saying, prioritize security recommendations through Secure Score and workload-specific signals, as well as threat alerts. So with these, you can gain insights into the security state of your cloud workloads across Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. You can address these security vulnerabilities with prioritized recommendations, improve your Secure Score, and overall security posture of your customer in minutes. With threat protection, we also offer workload-specific signals, anomaly-based detections, as well as speed up regulatory compliance. We yesterday announced further coverage of our compliance standards, so be sure to check those out. So with Microsoft Defender for Cloud, as Samba was saying, we really have two components. One is the cloud security posture management, and the second one is the cloud workload protection. These are two key components of any CNAPP platform, which helps to find weak spots across your cloud configuration, helps strengthen the overall security posture of your environment. Defender for Cloud supports both multi-cloud and hybrid environments, and it integrates with a range of products to enable seamless response to automation for your SecOps teams. Microsoft Defender for Cloud uniquely protects a very wide range of workload types in Azure and those native to AWS as well as GCP. In addition to traditional and highly critical workloads like servers, containers, and for Azure, specifically, Microsoft Defender for Cloud also offers service layer protection. Azure Resource Manager is a great example of highly critical service that is traditionally difficult to protect due to the amount of logs it produces. With Defender for Cloud, we can analyze these logs and alerts on any malicious activity that we detect. And as you can see here, we support numerous workloads in cloud across multi-cloud as well as on-premises. I plan to cover some of the key concepts in the plans of workload protection now. So let's start with Defender for Cloud, right? Which I hope some of you are already very well aware of. With Defender for Server comes two plans, Plan 1 and Plan 2. You will learn more about the plans as well as the pricing of these products in the next session. With Defender for Servers, we are able to protect any Windows or Linux server, not only in Azure, but on Amazon EC2 instance or Google Compute instance, or it could be a server running on premises. So we provide multi-cloud as well as hybrid support. One of the primary benefits of Defender for Server is that we offer integration with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, along with enhanced capabilities such as threat detection, adaptive app controls, file integrity monitoring, and for Azure VMs, the Azure network layer threat protection. So we are able to also look at the network layer and provide insights by monitoring it. So continuing with the benefits of Defender for Server. The simplified image on the right shows the traditional attack kill chain and how Defender for Server can protect your servers across the kill chain stages, which we are able to detect and prevent. For example, adaptive app control can monitor applications running on these servers and alert you when unsanctioned apps are executed. Hence, leveraging features like just-in-time access is key, which can both grant as well as limit access to management ports. We provide a central visibility of all VMs or servers, be it in the cloud or on premises. And with the use of auto-provisioning capabilities provided by Defender for Cloud, you can automatically deploy required agents, vulnerability assessment solutions, as well as automatically onboard your servers to Defender for Endpoint to provide anti-malware and EDR capabilities. Now you can also discover servers that are not protected and take action on these. This is a great way to discover all the critical assets that are important for your customer. So going over some other key benefits that are part of Defender for Servers, attack surface reduction that is powered by Defender for Endpoint, which allows you to create rules that helps manage the behavior of different applications. So for example, with processes, which processes can be executed or created on the machine, how an application can interact with other applications, or how an application can interact with the network. Attack surface reduction can also be executed in audit mode, which is like a what-if switch to understand what happens when these rules are enforced and appropriately design them before you actually enforce them in your customer's environment. The next key feature provided by this plan is the next-gen antivirus and anti-malware protection. So here we leverage different machine learning techniques to gather insights around if any files have malicious content. The cloud-based protection, which can be configured based on your customer's preference, this provides a near real-time detection of absolutely new and previously unknown malware. So let's assume an example where I'm uploading a malicious file, where it is analyzed by different heuristics and behavioral-based analytics, which identifies that this file is indeed malicious. With this insight now, if the same file is being uploaded in any other environments, the cloud-based protection will detect and block those. And some of you are MSSPs, so you might already be leveraging this capability of like endpoint detection and response. So this capability allows for automatic correlation of security alerts, providing your agents a holistic and broader view of an incident and exactly what is happening in the environment. The value of the data collected and represented here allows for an analyst to do advanced investigation and hunting for potentially sophisticated attacks that might be needed to investigate some of the attacks manually. There are more capabilities available as part of this plan, such as agentless scanning powered by vulnerability management as well. So I'll keep moving on to different plans in workload protection. So I know Dean is asking a lot of questions. So if you have many other questions, feel free to put them in chat. And once I'm done with my session, I'll go back and answer those as well. So the next plan is the Microsoft Defender for Containers. Before we look at the plan, let's look at what is a container, right? A container packages of code and all its dependencies, so applications can be deployed reliably in any computing environment. It really simplifies logistics and supply chain of deployments. Container adoption is booming. The use of containers in production has increased over 300% between 2016 and 2021. Kubernetes use in production in itself has increased by over 83%. So with this increase in usage, there is also an increase in sophisticated attacks targeting both containers and Kubernetes. There has been an extra focus on shift left, specifically targeting supply chains, the auto-build process of code repositories, and registries. Some examples you might recognize are SolarWinds and Log4j attacks that happened 3 to 4 years ago. So it is possible that some of your customers have already adopted Defender for Containers, but maybe they bought those plans before 2021. So in 2021, we released new plans, which had enhanced capabilities. So it is time for you to go back to those customers and have a fresh conversation around container security. The Defender for Container plan no longer relies on Defender for Server for host level protection, which means that you no longer need the log analytics agents, which means that your cust clusters will not be charged for Defender servers. And in simple terms, it's basically cost savings for your customers. Let's look at how we protect containers in multi-cloud and hybrid environments. So first of all, you need to understand the bottom line of your container security posture through SecureScore, which provides a prioritized view of all your containers assets. So make sure you enable role-based access control for your Kubernetes services, as well as encryption of containers when they are sitting within the registry. Also, make sure you harden and audit according to Azure and Docker security benchmarks. There is zero configuration for vulnerability management. When you enable the plan in itself, you get insights natively through vulnerability management capabilities. We have great detection suite for Defender for Containers with over 60 different alerts that are based on Kubernetes-aware analytics. These analytics allow you to detect different execution of processes, especially those that have behavior similar to bots. So with our strategy to drive multi-cloud security, we support a variety of Kubernetes distributions like AKS, EKS, and GKE as well. So moving on, let's look at Defender for databases. You might already know this. There are a bunch of security challenges we have around databases as represented here. There are numerous global campaigns in recent history that have targeted SQL workloads. These attacks were discovered by various security vendors as well as partners like you all. All of these campaigns have the same pattern in common. So they scan the SQL Server endpoints, which are publicly accessible via the default SQL port 1433. And then the attackers try to find weak users using the default username password combinations, or they try to brute force attack until they are successful. These bad actors then have been able to run crypto miners such as using the XV command shell. 70% of these attacks involved external actors, and 30% of them involved internal actors. So you can imagine there is no organizations immune to these attacks or data breaches. 76% of these attacks were on-premises assets. So it's really critical to protect your on-premises assets as well, not just the cloud environments. Most of these attacks were financially motivated and were looking for PII information. Hence, with the assume breach approach, it is important to set up security operations both to detect external as well as internal actors. Let's go through some common types of attacks for database, right? So the first one is SQL injection. Not purely a database attack, but in fact, a combination of database and web vulnerability. It is a very well-known type of attack in which an attacker uses like a web page to plan the attack. It is done by including parts of a SQL query statement in a web form, which is usually filled by a web user with relevant information. If the web page is not capable of handling the situation in a secure manner, it ends up sending this bogus request to a database. The attacker then can simply run a SQL query to dump the entire database on their machine by this method, which makes it really favorable for hackers and hence extremely dangerous from a security standpoint. The second one is brute force. Once the hacker gains control of the web server, they look for the application configuration files, which typically contain the database server name, user ID, and password to access the server. If the file is encrypted or if the information is hard-coded in the code for security reasons, hacker is left with options to either guess the password or brute force, right? It is found to be a common practice to leave the database administrator name accounts unchanged, as you already probably know. If not, hackers can also use like guesswork or a brute force to gain access to databases. Depending on the access level granted to the user, hacker can then gain control and is capable of laterally moving to cause further damage. So as this slide represents, Defender for Database supports SQL PaaS, IaaS, open source databases, as well as Cosmos DB. We will deep dive into each of these sections in our future events where we are specifically designed to like deep dive into each plan individually. So make sure you complete our survey at the end of this event and also like acknowledge that you want to hear from us about our future events. The new database-centric experience allows you to easily enable threat protection for all database types in your environment, including SQL, open source, relational database, Cosmos DB, and more soon. At the same time, you will retain the ability to manually manage these plans and the associated alerts. So moving on, let's look at Defender for storage. Some of the top concerns of cloud storage is malware, data exfiltration, and corruption. Often bad actors upload malware and use storage accounts to distribute, encrypt, or delete data. So with Defender for Storage is really a cloud native layer of security intelligence that conducts data plane and control plane analysis to detect threats. These could be caused by malicious insiders or external attackers that have access to a storage environment. It really synthesizes Microsoft threat intelligence and behavior modeling signals to identify early signs of breach. We have recently announced near real-time malware scanning across file types, as well as new threat detections to identify potential exposure and exfiltration of sensitive data. Defender for Storage provides ongoing monitoring of Azure storage sources across data and control planes. It uses like behavioral modeling to identify suspicious attempts to access or exploit data and configuration changes that indicate early signs of data breach, and generates a security alert, which allows security teams like yours to enable quick investigation, response, and mitigation. We have extended our sensitive data discovery engine to enable sensitive data threat detection for Microsoft Defender for Storage, new security alerts on active data breaches that involve malicious access, exfiltration, or corruption of sensitive data stored within the Azure Blob Storage. So malware scanning allows organizations to detect and prevent malware distribution events. So with content scanning upon upload and near real-time malware detection powered by Microsoft Defender antivirus technologies. As soon as the file reaches a storage account, Defender for Storage will immediately read the uploaded content, scan it, and detect polymorphic and metamorphic malware in near real time. Scan results can be viewed in a blob index tag, in Azure Event Grid, or in log analytics. If a malicious file is found, access to the file can be blocked, and the scan results will automatically trigger the security alert in Defender for Cloud. To further investigate the alert, a SOC team like you can create a Defender for Cloud workflow automation to their SIEM solution like Sentinel. So moving on, let's look at API security. As you know, APIs are like ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Everybody uses it for various reasons. 83% of internet traffic is driven by APIs. APIs are often the most frequent attack vectors. 90% of the web apps will expose attack surface through APIs. Many of you yourself run your managed services to API integrations as well. Hence, it is like critical to think about API security both for yourself and your customers. Here are some few API attacks that have caused significant damage. And some of us probably have like a personal experience with these attacks where our own data has been breached and we had to like take actions like protect ourselves. And so you can see the volume of attacks as well as the impact, the vast impact of these attacks that it can cause. So with Defender for APIs, we have Azure API Management Integration available now. You can classify and understand the security posture of APIs, harden those APIs, and monitor and protect during runtime. Now that you understand both posture management that Samba has referred to, as well as the workload protection capabilities that we just went through, let's kind of go over the operationalizing of Defender for Cloud that you can do yourself for your customers. So here are the three personas you probably interact with on a regular basis, be it for a sales or a engagement. So make sure you understand what is critical for them from a security posture, and try to automate some of those activities by using products like Defender for Cloud. The listed here are some of the use cases that you can think of. But I know that some of you have already automated a monthly posture management report by tracking secure score on a monthly basis and sending that to CISOs as well as your security admins. Or creating an inventory on a monthly basis and sharing that with these folks. So the use cases are numerous. There might be various activities that these personas are interested in. Understand those, and once that is understood, you can like try to use Defender for Cloud to automate those and inform these personas of what they really need. So while Azure resources are automatically assessed, the moment you enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud, all workloads are protected. So as soon as you enable additional protection plans, onboarding AWS and GCP and even on-premises resources is very easy through connectors. To assess AWS and GCP resources and receive security recommendations, simply onboard the AWS accounts, GCP projects, which are API connectors, and no agents are required. And also don't forget your on-premises. It is extremely difficult to protect your on-premises as well. So with many tasks that admin is given to kind of part of like take care of secure score, the ability to effectively remediate issues across a large fleet can be challenging. In order to simplify remediation, you can use something called as quick fix remediation that Samba was referencing to earlier. This operation will allow you to select the resource you want to apply the remediation to and remediation action that will configure the settings on your behalf. Many of you are already aware of our offering of like workload automation as a value-added services. So you can build your own workload automation for any of these recommendations as well as the failures. You can create an automation configuration level logic apps and create policies that will automatically trigger them based on specific findings such as either recommendations or alerts. Azure Logic App can be configured to do any custom actions supported by the vast community of Logic App connectors and use one of the provided templates as well. There are many of these samples already documented in the Defender for Cloud GitHub page, which we'll share with you when we send out the summary report for this event as well. And if you run a managed service, for example, like Sentinel, and use Sentinel as the primary platform to run your managed services, then you can also integrate Defender for Cloud with Sentinel so that you can see all the security recommendations as well as alerts there as well. And when you remediate those, we write back those remediations back into Defender for Cloud. So your agents are interacting with Sentinel while getting all the rich signals through Defender for Cloud. So I know that some of you have mentioned that a lot of times you don't have access to a customer's environment, or you don't have the rights to remediate security recommendations on customer's environment. In those cases, you can assign a task to an admin in the customer's environment, and they will get a note that is shown here where they get to see what task has been assigned to them and what they really need to do to remediate these activities. And so you can really like go a really long length of like what you can do with Defender for Cloud by looking at the recommendations and kind of filtering on what recommendations are critical for your customers, and then assigning those recommendations to an admin in a customer's environment, and then they can go and remediate those. So I spoke about we spoke about CSPM as well as workload protection. I kind of wanted to give an overview of like where are we investing, right, from a both roadmap and a product perspective. When we look at key investments, our aim is to increase coverage, capability, and better management experience. So we have recently announced many of these features to be in GA or in preview. Some of the key ones to note here are GitLab support. So with DevOps, we started with Azure DevOps and GitHub, and now we have expanded to GitLab as well. We have also expanded our geo availability. We also expanded infrastructure as code assessment, risk priority for security recommendations, as well as like posture management for GCP, vulnerability assessment for both GCP as well as AWS. Samba spoke about entire functions management, so that is also available, where we will discover the PCI score for the infrastructure, and then kind of show the recommendations of where can you go and fix those functions. We also have announced agentless malware scanning for servers, and then Samba mentioned this Defender for Cloud integration with M365 Defender. We also announced a bunch of features yesterday on public preview. So make sure you check out the Microsoft Secure announcements, and then you can look at the new capabilities that they've announced through that. I think I'm almost at time. But lastly, I wanted to share on the engineering team, we have many communities that we have set up. These are some of the public features that are in public preview right now. And customers and partners like you help test these features while they're in private preview. If at all you are interested to enroll in these private previews, make sure you join these communities and volunteer to test these features for us. As part of this, you also get to like really get first-hand access to all the features that are coming on the roadmap. So you should be able to like build your services, value-added services beforehand for your customers before they can go either into public preview or to production. So I'll stop here. I think we are going to take a break for 5 minutes since we have been talking for an hour. The next session.
Yes. Sorry, Litis. So maybe before we take the break, I think we still have maybe 10 to 15 minutes where I think we had some questions. Maybe we can go over those questions if that's okay.
Yep, that would be great.
Thank you, Samba. We do indeed have quite a lot of questions. So thank you very much, audience, for your participation. So some of the questions have indeed been answered in the chat, others not so, or you may have missed the answers. So if we go through, so I hope you don't mind me calling out your name for those who did put your name in the chat. So Rahul, thank you for your questions. How is Microsoft competing with competitors who are coming up with a similar approach in less cost?
Sure. The real value of Microsoft is really our setting portfolio of products, right? We have a rich set of products, and our ability to like integrate across our portfolio really like gives an extra ability for you as well as us to like make sure customers are getting what they need. I'm not going to say that we are better than our competitors or like not as good as competitors. I think we are all doing the same things in a really good way. Our intent is definitely to like keep up as a market leader in all these segments, right? But our ability to like really integrate across the portfolio of security products that our customers are using really like makes us stand apart from our competitors, I feel like.
Thank you, Litas. And another one from Rahul. In DevOps, would Defender for Cloud be able to provide the recommendations if there is any security flaw in the code?
Yes, that is a great question. So that is exactly what we are doing, right? So let's say a developer is writing an app and they have saved their code into a GitHub repository. We are able to look at that code and really like analyze and detect, are there vulnerabilities in that code? A good example would be, let's say with SolarWinds and Log4j attacks, we already know what kind of codes were used there. And if we detect similar similarities and say in the code the developer is using, we can then alert the developer natively in GitHub that, hey, like we detected this piece of code that might be vulnerable. Or it could also be a case of like, let's say the developer is invoking the infrastructure. We're able to look at that infrastructure and say, this infrastructure is either secure or not secure, or does it have malicious content in there? So it really like takes that shift left mentality to like next level, right? We're able to really in real time look at what is happening, what is being written in various DevOps environments, and then kind of look at that from a security perspective. It's a net new conversation to be had from your perspective. Maybe you never like got in front of developer personas or developer admin personas. So making them understand this and making sure they understand why it is important to like think of security while writing apps and deploying apps is critical. And that's a great question. That's exactly what we are doing with Defender for DevOps.
Thank you. And here's one just very recently posted. So thank you, Dean. Does the Entra PM integration mean that MDC and EPM will be sharing the same connections to AWS and GCP?
I don't know if you are sharing the same connectors, but natively in.
Yes, so maybe I can take that. So as we speak today, the connector configuration will be done on EPM. So what we did so far, and again, this is a journey we are on, is really sending the recommendation from EPM to Defender for Cloud. So then you will see all the recommendation in one place. But the EPM solution will still be the main place where you will do the connection to the multi-cloud environment. Now that being said, as you know, in our APM solution, so you have a feature like PIM, for example, Privileged Entity Management, which really works across multi-cloud. But we also do have the PIM capability in Azure as well, which only cover Azure workload. So this is really a journey where we will move all the PIM capabilities being on the PIM, being on the Azure side or being on the Entra permission management side to one console. So at some point, this will all converge to one environment. But as we speak today, the connector configuration, this is something that will be done on Entra permission management.
Thank you, Samba.
Yes. And then I want to call out, that even if the configuration is done in Entra permission management, the insights are shown in Defender for Cloud natively. So when you do when you enable the Defender for Cloud product, both CSPM or both version, you're able to actually get the insights of PCI scores in Defender for Cloud.
And then
just also to the question earlier asked about DevOps security and what are the recommendations that are available. I will give you a link in the chat window that really give you the list of all the recommendations that we provide today on the DevOps security. So that will give you a good idea of the kind of things that we can really identify and also give you a recommendation on.
Thank you. And a question from Hekon. Are there any plans to expand Defender for Containers to include Azure container apps in the near future?
I'm not sure of that. I don't know if somebody.
Maybe one we have to get back on.
Yeah, so I think
we can follow up on that one.
I answered that question, Catherine. Yeah, I can maybe comment a few things here. Not today. Today is not supported. It's part of our roadmap to include support for non-Kubernetes services, like, for example, Azure Container Instance and Azure Container Apps. At the moment, we cannot really specify a specific timeline, but it's part of our roadmap, and we are following it.
Thank you. And a question with no name. Does the data security posture feature require Azure Arc for on-premise systems?
Yeah, I answered as well that question on the chat.
Yeah.
And so today, no. Data security posture management is for cloud-based resources, like, for example, Azure storage blobs, containers, databases, and similar for AWS and GCP. So for now, it's not supporting on-prem resources.
Thank you. And then some of these questions may have been answered. We're repeating them for the wider audience in case you've not seen them in the chat. Is there a tool to scan an environment for APIs to help document the need for Defender for APIs?
I can answer that as well. I put something already in the chat, but so there are some freemium and premium kind of paid tools that they will go and scan a cloud API, presence. So, for example, in case of Microsoft, if those APIs are exposed by API management, you will have that inventory of APIs directly within APIM, as we call it. And then once you enable Defender for APIs, you will get all of the critical, misconfigurations and runtime detections. The other point as well is that if those APIs are declared as part of a CI/CD environment, then you can also do a crawling exercise within the CI/CD, like, for example, in GitHub. There are some specific tools that they will give you the inventory of APIs, and then will give you some analysis of how the API is being written. And we can, like, for example, 42Crunch is a partner of Microsoft that we work with them for API security and Defender for API. So that's and they actually have a freemium solution where you can crawl your CI/CD repository for APIs.
Thank you, David. And now quite a few new questions in the chat. So thank you, Kim. Yours is up first. In Defender for DevOps, how does CodeQL compare versus other tools in terms of accuracy? And then following on from that, can other open source tools be integrated if you use Defender for DevOps, GHAS for ADO? And can the results from those tools be shown in Defender for DevOps workbooks?
I'm not sure of that either. We'll have to follow up on that one.
Okay.
I think I'm almost at time there, Catherine. I think the next session is the demo, but we might be stopping for a bit.
Yeah, I think we got time for one more question, Litus, from Kern. Hello, Kern. Does the integration with ServiceNow support generating tickets for new secure score recommendations when they show up in the portal, or is it focused on alerts?
I can take this one.
Thank you.
So the secure score integration in Defender for Cloud, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's supported for recommendations today, not for the alerts. And currently we support ITSM module, but we are working on bringing VR module that's in the roadmap. That's one of the mostly asked from the customers. So it's for recommendations today, not for alerts.
Thank you. And one final question before we go to the break. So thank you, team. So this one is from Lai. Does Defender for DevSecOps integrated into CI/CD pipeline to provide CI/CD security?
Yes, it is.
Excellent.
Yes, it is, and it is documented.
Thank you. And we will provide the links in the question to the documentation that we can share with you. And on that note, thank you, audience, for all of your questions and keeping this interactive. Speakers, thank you. We will now go to a short 5-minute break before we begin our next session, which will be Safina giving a demo on Defender for Cloud. See you in 5 minutes, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
And welcome back, everybody. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker, Safina, who is going to give us a deep dive demo on the Defender for Cloud product itself. Thank you very much, Safina.
Thank you, Catherine. Hi, everybody. My name is Safina, and I'm a principal product manager working in cloud security team, and I work on Microsoft Defender for Cloud product. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Please let me know if you see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Amazing. Is it too less, or do you want me to increase the zoom?
I would increase it just a little bit since you're doing demo, Safina.
Okay, good.
Yep, much better. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so let's get to it. I know that you already had the theory session of how Microsoft Defender for Cloud works and the functionality and everything. Now let's come to the interesting part. So Defender for Cloud, this is the Defender for Cloud dashboard. When you click on the overview section, you should be able to see all the information regarding your security posture overview, regulatory compliance, workload protections, and inventory. Okay, let's get started from the beginning. So let's imagine you are a new user to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and if you want to onboard your subscriptions to Defender for Cloud, you could do that either by clicking on Getting Started. When you click on Getting Started, you should be able to see the subscriptions that are not onboarded to Defender for Cloud. Either you could enable it from here, or you could go to Get Started also, and you can enable Defender for Cloud for on-premise. If you want to onboard your on-premise servers, or if you want to protect your multi-cloud environments like AWS and GCP deployments. So that's one of the ways. And then you would go to, you'd go to environment settings, and there you should be able to see all your subscriptions right here. Then you can check to see how many plans have been enabled and so on and so forth. You could click on Add Environment here and then choose AWS, GCP, or if you're onboarding DevSecOps, then GitHub, Azure DevOps, or GitLab repositories, depending on your requirement. So that's a little bit about onboarding. Now let's get to the number of pillars that we have in Defender for Cloud. When I click on a subscription, it'll take me to the Defender plans. And one of the Microsoft Defender's main pillars is cloud security posture management, and that's what you would see at the top. So CSPM will provide you with the security state of your assets and workloads. It'll help you help you in hardening, and it'll provide you guidance to help you, effectively improve your secure score. And we have two flavors of CSPM that we offer to the customers: Foundational CSPM and Defender CSPM, as you may have learned. Foundational CSPM is free, where you get the capabilities that are automatically enabled by default for the subscriptions and accounts that onboard to Defender for Cloud. And Defender CSPM is the optional paid cloud security posture management plan, where you can see advanced security features. Now, when I click on the settings under Defender CSPM, you'll that there are a number of extensions that will be helpful for a number of important features that you can receive with the help of Defender CSPM. To start with, agentless scanning for the machines. So we've always, in the past, we've been using Log Analytics agent, to scan your VMs, and which has been one of the feedbacks from the customers. Now you don't need an agent. You can scan your machines for the installed software, vulnerabilities, and if you have any secret scanning without relying on the agents itself. And it does not impact your performance as well, because the way that Defender for Cloud works with agentless scanning is we take snapshot of your machine and then we run it in the backend in order to analyze the vulnerabilities and then display it here in the environment, in the Defender for Cloud dashboard. So then you have agentless discovery for the Kubernetes, and then you have agentless container vulnerability scanning assessment as well, and then sensitivity data discovery. And this is one of the new features that we added in the last Ignite, which is permissions management. If you have been using Microsoft Entra permissions management, so or if you know about Microsoft Entra permissions management, where that'll help you identify if you have any over provisioned identities or unused identities or super identities, for example. We have integrated Defender for Cloud with Microsoft Entra Permissions Management, MEPM. So as long as you have Defender CSPM enabled in your subscriptions, you make use of this feature. And you've heard of the CNAPP definition of Gartner, right? CNAPP is nothing but the combination of CSPM, CWPP, and KIM, right? So adding permissions management to Microsoft Defender for Cloud completes our CNAPP story, and we are providing you with the KIM recommendations as well with the help of this capability. So that's about Defender CSPM. And then you have number of protections, workload protections that you have available: servers, apps, service, storage, containers, key vault, API security, and so on, right? Clicking on the settings, you should be able to see what plan you want to enable, P1 or P2, and then what protection you want to enable, and so on and so forth. So that's a little bit about onboarding. Now let me get to the features. So when you have Defender for Cloud enabled, you will receive recommendations like these. Here in the top, you'll notice the overview tab where you can see the secure score and how many are secure, what are the active secure score recommendations, and as well as the attack path. I'll talk about this in a bit, about attack path, which is very interesting capability. But now these are number of recommendations that you would see, and then we have assigned a maximum score based on the research that we've done. And then it'll also tell you what is the potential score increase if you resolve so-and-so recommendation. Now, along with this, there's one capability that we recently released, which is risk prioritization. So what we want to tell you is, let me just refresh it. When you refresh, I'll get that prompt. So Defender for Cloud proactively utilizes, dynamic engine in order to assess the risk in your environment while we are taking into account the potential exploitation and the potential business impact of your organization. So risk assessment is one of the critical capabilities that Defender for Cloud offers. So Defender for Cloud analyzes which security issues are part of the potential attack paths and the attackers could use to breach your environment. And we also highlight the security recommendations that needs to be resolved. But one of the things that we heard from the customers is we want to understand, for example, if a recommendation to enable MFA on a user account can have a different risk level for different users, right? It's possible because the risk level is determined by the risk factors of each resource, like it could be because of its configuration or network connections or even security posture for that matter, right? So that's why we introduced a new capability called risk level. Risk level is actually calculated based on the potential impact of the security issue that's being breached, and then the categories of risk and the attack path that the security issue is part of. So either you could use this prompt in order to go to the risk by environments, or you could click on the title of the recommendation and click on the affected resource and click on the risk level in order to identify if there is a recommendation and what's the business impact of the underlying security issue that we are highlighting here in Defender for Cloud. And you can take that into account in terms of like context like exposure do I have? Sensitive data, is there a lateral movement that's happening that I need to take care of, and things like those. So as you notice here on my screen, risk factors, you'd see that. So let's take one example. Public internet access on Azure SQL database should be disabled. So it looks like one of my Azure SQL database has public network access. Now, this is my affected resource, and the risk level is identified as critical, and the risk factor is this, where we are actually telling you that this has weak authentication, sensitive data, critical resource, as well as you have exposure to internet. So we are helping you identify if a specific user, how it's going to be affected in terms of the threat for the threat actors. So this will kind of help you understand that your environment is what needs to be taken care of first in your environment. And then we have attack paths as well. Attack paths is also mentioned here in the recommendation section, where we are telling you the number of attack paths that the recommendation is part of based on the security engine search on the graph, which is attack path. Now, as a security admin, I can analyze to see this particular SQL Server VM is actually exposed to internet, and that is contained in the SQL database. So we are telling you attack path, how the target can be exploited by the threat actors, and how where you can break the chain. This is a very simple example that I took, but I could look at one of the complicated ones to help you show the bigger picture. If I have one in my demo environment. So basically what we are telling you is potential attack paths based on the resources that you have in your environment, right? Like this, for example, this is a virtual machine that has authentication, that can authenticate as managed identity, and it also has permissions to the storage account. Either I could resolve the issue by breaking the chain here or removing the permissions here. I could go to the next few steps as well to understand here, right? So this is the attack path that we introduced recently. And yeah, let me go back here. Yeah, so the owner, this is the person the recommendation is assigned to. So we have a capability within Defender for Cloud called governance capability, right? So that's one of the capabilities that we came up with because customers were having difficulty in assigning accountability to the recommendations, to resolve the recommendations, right? So one of that issue we wanted to resolve, we wanted to raise the accountability within the organization. That's why we introduced governance capability, where you can actually assign a specific recommendation to a specific individual or a group within Defender for Cloud and define accountability there. So that's what the owner section is, and the status is based on if that particular recommendation is assigned or not, and if the particular owner has taken care of the recommendation, or if he has passed the last due date, and so on and so forth. And then Insights, which is one of the oldest feature in Defender for Cloud, you can see if this particular feature has a capability that you can apply deny. Like, for example, this one. So if there are new resources that your personnel can, like, for example, this for the public network access on Azure SQL database should be disabled. So if I don't want anybody to to spin up a resource of Azure SQL database with public network access, I could apply the deny policy effect, and I could take care of this recommendation before when it pops up. Sure. right? So things like those we highlighted here under Insight section, which is very useful for the security admins. And this particular icon talks to you about if this particular recommendation is in GA or in preview and so on. If it's in GA, you won't see the icon, but if it's in preview, you'd see an icon like this. So this is about the risk prioritization. This is one of the loved features that we have within Defender for Cloud, which we released very recently. And you can this entire data that you're seeing here in the dashboard is exposed to it's exposed to Azure Resource Graph. So I could click on the open query and I could go to the Graph Explorer. I could run the query and I could export the results and then define accountability and remediation and whatnot. Okay. So that was about that. Now, let's talk about inventory. One of the important things for the security admins is inventory. They want to understand what are the resources that they have in their environment and how, if they are covered or not, with the help of in terms of protection, as well as if there is an agent required to assess that particular resource, is the monitoring agent installed or not, and how many recommendations we have or not, and so on and so forth. The overview here will help you understand how many resources are covered, unhealthy, healthy, monitored, and what are all the unregistered subscriptions. So yeah, so I could add more filters to understand more details, like if I want to specifically monitor for some of the recommendations that contains exemptions, for example, I could select based on what I'm looking for and click on OK, which will add a new filter and help me understand if this is a particular recommendation that contains exemption and so on. Okay. Now, let's talk about Cloud Security Explorer. This is one of the other coolest feature that we have in Defender for Cloud, which is part of Defender CSPM. Defender CSPM is the paid version, like you saw, Foundational and Defender CSPM. So yeah, so Cloud Security Explorer is a graph-based context engine, that will help you. That actually collects the data in the backend from your multi-cloud environment and other data resources. Like, for example, the cloud asset inventory, the connections, the lateral movement possibilities that you may have between the resources. Do you have exposure? Do you have any VMs or resources that have exposure to the internet? How are your permissions assigned? Do you have network connections, vulnerabilities, and things like those? It'll collect all of that, and then Defender for Cloud will help you understand, proactively monitor this data here. So I could either, actually, let me show you one of the other coolest thing before I talk to you about the query builder. I could click on the templates. We have number of templates that are predefined based on the most seen scenarios from the customers. Like, for example, one of the critical ones is the user accounts without MFA and permissions to the storage accounts. I could click on the open query, which will actually help me load the query in the backend. And I could search to see if I really have any user accounts that has permissions to the storage account and that does not have MFA enabled. So it looks like I'm doing pretty good here. So I don't have any results for this specific query. So technically, as a security admin, I could dig deep into this particular query and add more conditions if I want to. Like, for example, in this example, I could click on identity and access and say, as a member, if it is a member of a particular user group or all the user groups and so on and so forth. And I could keep clicking on the plus sign and select my conditions and then navigate through further to understand how my environment is doing. So this is a proactive search of the query. And if you remember the log4j issue that we have had in the past, right? So one of the common questions that we've received from the customers was, how do I know the log4j is still not present in my environment? Is there their way to search. And then we came up with a workbook during those days in order to help customers search if there are any resources that have Log4j. So Cloud Security Explorer will help you with just that. You can proactively search for vulnerabilities, for if there are any misconfigurations, if there are any issues that could actually lead to breach on your environment, and it will help you remediate the highest risk ones first. For example, if you have exposure to the internet or permissions like we saw. So yeah, that's about Cloud Security Explorer, and you need to have Defender CSPM in order to use this. So say, for example, this is one of my mostly used query that I want to keep it saved. I have the capability to click on Share Query link, and I could actually, it will actually copy the query to the clipboard, and then I could actually send it to my team and so on and so forth. Okay. That was about Cloud Security Explorer. Now, the other thing that's quite linked to Cloud Security Explorer is the attack path analysis. We saw a little bit of attack paths in the recommendations itself, but I just want to highlight it as well in here. So attack path analysis is actually a graph-based algorithm that kind of scans the Cloud Security Explorer, Cloud Security Graph, which is why these two are linked. The scans, like for example, the Cloud Security Explorer will give you the recommendations, right? So let's see this query. So it tells me that that I have some virtual machines that is exposed to internet and which has vulnerabilities with the severity high, right? So this the insights are it's exposed to internet, and these are the CVIDs, right? So now attack path analysis will take this information and actually help you understand if there is if that could actually cause a breach to your environment and reach your high impact assets. Attack path analysis will expose attack paths and then suggest recommendations as how best you can remediate the issues that you can break the attack path and prevent the breach. So you'll have attacker, as you saw here in the graph that I showed you earlier, right? So you can have a particular entry point and then the target point and how you can work together with your team to break the chain here, right? So in the left pane, you'll be able to see the risk factors that's associated with any specific recommendation that you look on. The risk factors, critical resource, internet exposure in this particular scenario, and I do have some plain text keys as well that I need to take care of. Yeah, so it's pretty bad at the moment. So yeah, even in the overview section, I should be able to see what's the entry point, target, environment, risk factor, and so on. And again, this is a Defender CSPM capability. If you have Defender CSPM, you should be able to make benefit out of it. So that was about those two cool things that are my super favorite. Now, let's get to regulatory compliance, which is another important capability that many customers want for. So Defender for Cloud, what it does, it streamlines the regulatory compliance process in order to help you identify issues that are like kind of preventing you to meet your particular compliance standard, for example, or even achieving compliance certification as an example, right? So we have number of compliance controls that are available to assess against your environment. You can view it right here within your Defender for Cloud dashboard. So as you notice here, I have 3 that's shown here in the dashboard, but I have the capability to click on this sign here and look for other regulatory compliances that I want to monitor. So let's say, for example, I want to monitor one of the CIS Azure Foundation's regulatory compliance. I can see that sorry. I can see that I'll be able to understand how my environment is working on. Okay. So I'll be able to see what are all that are passed and not and so on. So the dashboard here will give me the summary of the standards and the controls that have been passed, and then the summary of standards with the lowest rate for the resources. You could review the standards that are applied within the selected scope. Sorry, let me just put myself into do not disturb. Okay, great. So yeah, you can manage the compliance to see. You can manage the compliance policies to see what are all the standards that's been assigned to a specific scope. You can run a query also to create a custom compliance report. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but you can bring your own compliance as well, and you could monitor it. So I could click on the 3 dots here, and I'll show you one of the compliance that I brought in. Like for example, honey tokens. So this was one of the compliance that I was working on. So it's super simple to assign a particular compliance within the subscriptions through the environment settings. I wanted to monitor one of my key walls to see how it's doing. So it looks like the key walls are really not doing well, and I need to take care of it. So if you have a custom compliance that you brought in, you'll be able to see it here under the assessment itself that this is custom. And as part of MS Secure, we recently released more compliances. Make sure you check out the announcement that we make recently. We added about 20 plus compliances within the Defender for Cloud dashboard. Now I have the capability to click on manage compliance policies, which will actually take me to the subscriptions. I could click on the subscription and then I can manage it accordingly. And I have the capability to click on open query, which will take me to the Azure Resource Graph Explorer, and then audit reports as well as compliance offerings as well. I have the capability to download this specific report into a PDF format or even a CSV format and select the relevant scope that I want to download, and then I could research further with my team. So these are some of the cool capabilities that we have. Now, let me go to this compliance overtime workbook. Now, this is inbuilt within Microsoft Defender for Cloud for you. You can see this under the workbook section as well. Let's select all my subscriptions in this example. So I have selected the specific workspace and subscription, and it'll load how I am doing over time in terms of regulatory compliance. So I'm going to select the specific subscription and select the standard. Once it loads, you should be able to see how the graph is trending up and down, and how I'm working in terms of the regulatory compliances dashboard. So yeah, so these are the compliance standards that's been enabled in my subscription CyberSec SOC. And these are some of the past controls and past percentage. Looks like I need to take care of several recommendations, 7-day change, 30-day change, and so on. Right. And it also tells me what are all the past controls over time in terms of the compliances as well. Right. So this is a workbook. Okay. So I could go to the workbook section. I could edit the query, and I could rewrite the query based on my requirements. So speaking of that, let me go to the workbook section. Defender for Cloud offers you number of workbooks by inbuilt. Okay, so the ones that you are looking at here in the blue, right? These are the inbuilt workbooks. Azure, I'm sure you may have heard of Azure workbooks, right? It's a flexible canvas that you can use to analyze data, and you can create rich and visual reports like these, right? And Azure Monitor works in the backend for some of it, and KQL query and so on. So Defender for Cloud, you can access built-in workbooks in order to track your organization security posture. You can also build custom workbooks, as you see. If I bring in more subscriptions, yeah, I have to change tenant, but you'll be able to see some of the workbooks that you probably might be building right at the top. And then the blue ones and the blue ones are the ones that is inbuilt to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and the purple ones have been contributed by community, by our team members within Defender for Cloud is what you see here in the purple ones. There's a strategy behind it. There's a logic of who takes care of what and so on. That's why you see the color difference. However, yeah, let's take one of the workbook. Yeah, Defender for APIs cost estimation. So this is one of the new workbooks that we worked on, which will actually tell me the price estimation of Defender for APIs. I could choose a specific subscription and the API specifically, and I could actually estimate what will be the monthly transaction looks like, right? So this will help me understand which subscription of mine is actually, or which APIM of mine is actually taking a lot of dollars and so on and so forth, and take actions accordingly. And like I said, the workbooks are customizable. I have the capability to edit it. And when I click on the edit, it will actually help me to edit the query. So I could go to advanced settings. Actually, yeah, I could click on edit here under the query, go to the advanced settings, and this is actually the table that we have. But there'll be a query as well. If I'll show you in one of the good workbooks that you can actually edit and rewrite the KQL query accordingly, and you can benefit out of it. I sure want to leave. Yes. Yeah, so we have number of workbooks. Please make sure you take most benefit out of it. It's free of cost for you to look into it. You don't need Defender CSPM for this. This comes for free. So I could click on cost estimation dashboard. This is one of the other popular workbooks. Click on all subscriptions, all accounts, and I have the capability to calculate it on how things are going in my environment. So that was about workbook. Now I have the dedicated section for the community as well, where we keep this updated all the time. You can see the blog posts that's been released newly, videos, learnings that you want to work on to ramp up and things like those. Now moving on to the security posture section. When I go to the security posture, I'll be able to see what's under the overview section. I can see how I am trending in terms of secure score, in terms of all the clouds, Azure, AWS, and GCP. And also, if I have Azure DevOps, then I have the capability to see how I'm trending in terms of my ADO, GitLab, and GitHub repositories. I have the capability to uncheck these options and see what I want to see. And I talked a little bit about governance to you, right? So you have the you can view which recommendation is being assigned to a specific individual or a group with the help of this in the security posture plate. I could click on the owner, which will actually tell me who's been assigned what recommendation. So if I take this as one of the user, right, Thomas Su, I could click on view recommendations, and it'll actually take me to the normal view. Will actually help me understand what are all the recommendations that's been assigned to Thomas and how he's doing in terms of the status, right? So that's our governance capability. You could actually assign governance by clicking on the recommendation itself from the recommendations pane. You could click on the environment settings, and you could assign the governance by clicking on the governance rule as well. Here you have the capability to actually create a governance rule. When I click on create governance rule, I have the option to actually define the rule name and select the scope, which is my subscription, and type is Defender for Cloud, and then priority, then the description and the conditions. I assign the conditions, like, do I want all identity recommendations to be assigned to a specific individual? So things like those, I could do it here in conditions section. Okay, so when I'm talking about governance, there's another capability that's very much related to governance, which is ServiceNow integration. So we recently introduced ServiceNow integration within Defender for Cloud, where you have where you can connect your environment to ServiceNow ITSM module. So I have the option to click on Add Integration and click on ServiceNow and actually provide the details in order to add a specific integration. So let me choose one of the integrations that I already have available to save time. So ServiceNow connection is one of the integrations I created recently. So this is the name of the integration, choose the subscription. And if I want to exclude, so here I could, in the scope section, I could choose a subscription or a management group. All right. So say, for example, within the management group, if I want to exclude a specific subscription, I could do that within this capability. And I have the capability to add instance URL of a ServiceNow and username and password and client ID and client secret. This is required in order to pass the token and to connect to the ServiceNow context. And I click on next, which will actually take me to the configuration screen, which will tell me what data that you want to populate within the ServiceNow portal. So by default, short description is actually selected, but you have the capability to assignment, to assign a group and so on and so forth. And problems table as well. I have many options and changes. So these are the three tables that we cover here from the configuration section. And this, like I said, it's an integration with ITSM module, and we are working on the vulnerability response module as well. It's in the roadmap. So once I have created the connection, I could go to the recommendations section, and I could actually, let's say, let me take one of the assessment that does not have an assignment. So yeah, let's take this one as an example. And I could click on a specific resource or all my resources based on how I want to define my assignments. And I could actually click on assign owner. So when I click on assign owner, I have the option to select the type. So there are two types that you will notice, Defender for Cloud and ServiceNow. If I choose Defender for Cloud, this is nothing but the governance capability that I showed you a while ago. That's why I said these are interrelated. So currently in my example, I want to choose ServiceNow. I want to move, assign this recommendation to somebody from the ServiceNow. User from the ServiceNow portal. Now I choose the integration instance. Integration instance is what I created in the last step. And ServiceNow ticket type. Like I said, we support these three ticket types today. So incident, change request, or problem. Let's take incident as an example. And assignment details, short description is by default selected, like I showed you, but you have the capability to edit this if you want, if you don't like the name. And this part is coming from the governance capability, where you can set the remediation time frame to define the accountability. You can set the capability to apply grace period if you don't want secure score to be affected until this particular recommendation is resolved by the individual or an assignment group. On you have the capability to assign to email the notifications as well directly to the owners or directly to the owner manager. This part is integrated with Azure Active Directory. Defender for Cloud is able to see who's the owner and direct manager and so on. And then the email configuration will be gone. So let's do this and let's click on create. In a fraction of seconds, you should be able to actually see the assignment that's being created. And once the assignment is created, there's this ticket ID column that we introduced, which is for the ServiceNow. So when I click on this is a ticket ID of the ServiceNow. So when I click on the ticket ID, it will actually take me to the ServiceNow portal, ask you to log in order to view the information about the recommendation that's been assigned to the ServiceNow. So yeah. Now let's that was about ServiceNow capability that we have. Now let me see. Workload protection. We have a dedicated section for workload protection where you can see how you're doing in terms of your containers, in terms of your servers, based on the plan that you have enabled. And you can see the overview right here. You could click on any specific tab in order to view more information. Right? Data security. So we introduced this data security dashboard recently at Ignite. The main goal of us is to provide an interactive view for the significant risk to sensitive data. So as you notice here in the dashboard, we prioritize the alerts and potential attack paths across multi-cloud data resources, where we are helping you with the data protection management, and we are making it more effective for you. So within the data security dashboard, you can easily locate and summarize the sensitive data resources in your cloud data estate, which is here on the top at the dashboard. And you can identify and also prioritize the data resources that are at risk, and also you can prevent to respond to sensitive data breaches. You can investigate if you have any high attack path, high severity alerts that can lead to sensitive data. We do highlight the attack paths as well that lead to sensitive data. You can also explore the data queries in the Security Explorer. Going closer look, here you can see sensitive data discovery. These are some of the top sensitive information types that I have in my environment and top sensitive labels. I could click on view all resources, but before that, let me show you here. So these are my subscriptions that is being listed here, and the results are based on that. Now I could click on, let's take this as an example, the data resources with high severity alerts. I could click on the 187 related alerts, and it'll actually take me to the security alerts dashboard. These are the only alerts these are the alerts that are very sensitive and have sensitive data discovery that needs to be taken care of. So when you go to the security alert section within the Defender for Cloud dashboard, you may see all the alerts. But if you want to specifically highlight some of the high severity alerts that are related to the data sensitivity, then you can come here and look into it. Data resources with critical and high attack paths. It looks like I have 18 of them, and I could click on it, and I could see why it is high attack path. So like you see here, the attack path for a specific recommendation, I see that it is under the risk factor is critical critical resource, internet exposure. Vulnerabilities, lateral movement, plain text keys, and sensitive data. This is a lot. So it needs to be taken care of, and this is named as critical for you. So you can see all of that information right here. But if you want to do a closer look to understand what are the top sensitive information types do I have, I can see it right here. So let's say I'm targeted to remediate all the credit card numbers that's been identified within my environment. I could click on the credit card specifically, and I could click on search, which will actually take me to the Cloud Security Explorer and gives me more information. These are the resources that have credit card number that contains high sensitive data. Now, as a security admin, this information is really golden to me. I could download this as a CSV report, and I could distribute it to my team to make sure this has been taken care of, right? So how would I know if I didn't have this dashboard, right? It's so critical for me having so many subscriptions to understand which particular resources have what sensitive information, right? And then if I have a sensitivity labels assigned to a specific subscriptions or resources, I could see that here, view all resources with sensitivity labels, which will actually take me to the Cloud Security Explorer and load the query for you. By the way, you can share this query and you can save this query so for next time. And you could search and then get all the resources with the label, name, and the insights, and go right ahead with it. Okay. That's about data security dashboard. Let me see if I'm missing something. And we also talk about what are all the data resources that are internet exposed that needs to be taken care of. Yeah. Cool. Hope you start using this. Firewall Manager has always been there, where we tell you about how your virtual network firewall coverage is. Do you have network DDoS security coverage and all of those good things? Make sure you check it out. I'm gonna be skipping that section to go more in detail, considering the time. Now, the last one that I want to show you, actually last but one, is DevOps security dashboard. If you haven't seen this already, this is the overview of how it looks like. At the overview section, we display how you're doing in terms of the security findings, high, medium, and low. Do you have infrastructure as a code finding, code scanning, secret findings that we have found out, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that we hear from the security admins, before we release DevOps security dashboard is, for security admins, it was critical to understand what my developers are working on and how they are pushing the code into an environment, right? Into which repositories and so on. That visibility was missing. But as a security admin, I have the capability to see all my repositories that the developers are working on, and do I have any issues that the developer needs to be taken care of. Now, as a security admin, I can come to Defender for Cloud dashboard, and I could, for example, click on one of the unhealthy repository and view what is unhealthy here. It looks like some GitHub repositories have secret scannings that needs to be resolved. I could click on it and I could actually see which particular repository is this, and I could click on the findings section, and I could see that a particular storage account key has secrets enabled that needs to be taken care of. Click on it further to see more information. But yeah, I could click on the graph as well, which will actually take me to the attack path graph. So it looks like there's no relevant attack path found for this particular recommendation. But yeah, however, you can see all of this good information. So as a security admin, I have the capability to review the findings and to see how my developers are working on right here in the Defender for Cloud dashboard. Now, as a developer, I do not need to come to the Defender for Cloud dashboard to see what issues I have. My security admin will be able to push the as long as the connector is enabled, which should be, if you're seeing it here in the Defender for Cloud, he'll be able to push these recommendations to the tools that my developer is working on. So the main goal is to provide a single pane of glass to security admin, as well as to help the developers not to switch between the GUIs, and actually he can work on the same tool that the developer likes and loves and is used to, and make the best use of it. So that's the whole purpose of the DevOps security dashboard, and also help you find out if they have any vulnerabilities in terms of findings. We have several tools that works in the backend in order to give you this information. Okay. So before I sign off, I want to talk about workflow automation. So customers ask me, how do I automatically remediate a recommendation or an alert? Okay. I want to introduce you if you haven't seen it already. There is a GitHub repository that we heavily contribute on in a daily basis. This is ocean of information actually. Yeah, like you notice here, this is our GitHub repository where you can see a number of PowerShell scripts, remediation policies, remediation scripts, security recommendations, name it, you have it here. We have details for the workbooks and so on. So what I'm trying to refer you is with the help of workflow automation, you can actually spin up a logic app in order to remediate these recommendations or alerts. One of the alerts that I created was recently was to eliminate the brute force attack. So one of my customers asked me, I don't want to wait. I may not be looking at Defender for Cloud dashboard on a daily basis. So if there is a brute force attack that Defender for Cloud actually fires, then I want that alert to be taken care of automatically. Is there a way to do that? So yes, obviously there is a way to do that. So you can actually spin up a logic app and you can assign that logic app to the brute force attack alert. So let's see if I have one. Yeah, I do. So here I have the option to click on view full details and take action. Under take action, I have the capability to trigger automated response. When I click on trigger logic app, it will actually load all the logic apps that I have in my environment. And I could choose one of the logic apps that I built for the brute force attack, for example, right? So let's take this as an example, since I don't have brute force attack logic app here, but I could click on trigger. When I do that, the logic app is attached to this particular alert. So the next time when Defender for Cloud sees there is a brute force attack attempt in your environment, it will automatically fire up that logic app and the logic defined behind it. So the logic that I defined behind it is if there is a brute force attack, actually in the alert details, I would be able to see which particular account is affected and which resource it is trying to target, right? And which resource it's coming from. I have all this cool information right here in the alert details. So in the logic, what we can define is if a brute force attack happens to the targeted VM, the targeted VM be VM1 as an example, go to that VM1 and create network security group so that it's not the attack is not actually happen, and so that the attack blocks the attack is blocked beforehand. So we don't remediate it. Even the logic apps don't remediate it. It just blocks it, and it'll have the capability to, you can define the capability to actually notify you. So say, for example, brute force attack. I have remediated the brute force attack by helping creating the network security group. And I have also notified the owner that there was a brute force attempt, and this is the network security group that I created, and go ahead and take care of it. So as a security admin, I know that particular VM was affected and I need to come here and take care of it. So things like those cool things I should be able to do with the help of the workflow automation. I could either go to the take action section like I showed you, or I could click on the workflow automation. I could actually add the workflow automation and actually assign the workflow automation to either to the recommendation or to a security alert. I have the option here to choose, or to the regulatory compliance standard as well. Okay, I could define the alert name, I could define the alert severity and all that cool information. And here is where I would select the logic app that I want it to be applied to for this particular section, for any particular alert. Okay, I think I have almost covered everything. I hope this was helpful. Please make sure to check out Defender for Cloud and Defender CSPM specifically, where you can benefit from all of these cool capabilities that I was able to demo today.
Thank you, Safina. That was a really comprehensive and great demo. You have had an awful lot of questions in the chat.
Yeah.
They have virtually all, from what I can see, been answered by the team. So thank you, team. But I'm just going to read some of them out, Safina, for Samba or for David or for yourself to answer, just in case the audience have not seen them all. Some of the key ones. So, for example, from Dean, does the risk level consider whether or not an admin role is flagged as privileged in the Entra portal?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Does the risk level consider whether or not an admin role is flagged as privileged in the Entra portal?
Yes, it is considered when we are flagging in.
Thank you.
Sorry, Catherine. Safina, in your last section, you were talking about the automation, right? And I know a lot of partner and customers sometimes are asking, okay, so this is the SOAR capability similar to what we have in Sentinel, but what about the cost? I don't know if you can, share any insights into what you're really seeing on the customers. I know that it's really per action and not really expensive, but still, customer and partners are usually asking if they enable that, if it would be really like expensive or not. I don't know if you can share any insight on that.
Yeah, sure. So yes, the cost is associated, but not from the Defender for Cloud side of the house, but from the Logic apps itself. So within the Logic, when you create a Logic app, there are 3 plan types that you can create using actually two, standard and consumption level. So consumption is the base, is best for the entry level, where you pay only as much as your workflow runs, which is what many customers use for this, for Defender for Cloud specifically, because it's not that every day that you see the alert, right? So yeah, so and another one is the standard, which is actually best for enterprise level serverless applications, which, with event-based scaling and networking isolation and so on, which is not necessary for Defender for Cloud alerts or recommendations. So yeah, there is a price associated, which is minimal if you choose consumption based. That was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. And just in case anyone missed it, because one of the answers referred to an announcement made only yesterday, is ServiceNow integration accessible with CSPM foundational plan?
No, it's not. It is based on Defender CSPM. You need to have Defender CSPM capability.
Okay. But we had a reply also related to ServiceNow about some announcements made yesterday. ServiceNow integration?
Yeah, ServiceNow integration went GA.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for confirming. And in terms of other questions, do you have any suggestions about how to get the owner attributes populated for resources that don't have it? Maybe David, question for you, please.
Sorry, Catherine, can you repeat it? I was putting something on the chat now.
Do you have any suggestions about how to get the owner attributes populated for resources that don't have it?
So maybe one idea would be like if the resource owner is mapped to an Azure tag, we could use the Azure Resource Graph, which is a query that we have within the Azure portal that it's integrated with Defender for Cloud recommendations as well. So like we could trigger that query to look for that specific tag and kind of like finding the resource owner if that's mapped to the tag, obviously.
Thank you. And then question from Rahul, just put in the chat. Security alert in MDC and Sentinel incidents. How is it different? And is it almost the same? What is the benefits of using it if it is almost the same?
You would use Sentinel as your SIM tool if you would like to investigate further to see from where the alert was generated and more information. Specifically, you use Sentinel for that. So, Defender for Cloud fires the alert. It gives you all the details of the alert, where it's coming from, what is the target, and you have the capability, like I showed you, to remediate it and so on. But if you want to do further investigation, then you would stream the alerts from Defender for Cloud to Sentinel to do the further investigation.
Yes, so just to add on that, actually, even the Defender XDR, right, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office, and all the other good technologies that we have, you will have the alerts in the solution itself, and you can streamline the alert to Sentinel. That being said, we also announced recently that the Sentinel and the Defender XDR will come into one portal. So I guess once the solution is currently now in private preview, but once that will reach the public preview or GA, then we will less ask questions into do I need to do that in Sentinel or do I need to do that in the Defender portal, knowing that those two products will come together. Also, you could leverage Microsoft Sentinel to do the correlation, right? So taking the alerts coming from Defender for Cloud or any other Microsoft security solution and correlate them with other alerts or log sources, right? Coming from a firewall, coming from any other third-party solutions that you might have. Okay, so that's pretty much.
Thank you. And one final question before we move to our next presentation. From Wayne, thank you, Wayne, related to data security. Do you have to enable any other services for data security service to capture findings like Microsoft Purview? I know, Gopal, you answered it, but reading it out since we haven't touched on Purview, and there's a question on Purview.
You might have to follow up on that, Catherine.
Yeah, well, I can read out. Gopal did say it uses the same engine as Purview to identify sensitive info types. If you would like to get the labels displayed in Microsoft Defender for Cloud, recommended to integrate with Purview.
I can maybe add something else, Catherine, on that. There is nothing else that the customer has to do from Defender for Cloud. The only thing is basically setting the threshold that you can you want to have to mark something as sensitive. That's the only thing that you can do on Defender for Cloud. And obviously within the Defender CSPM environment settings, you need to enable data security posture management. That's all. And then the sensitive information types will appear automatically, even without having Purview license. If the customer has Purview license, what they get is that they also get the DLP, the labels as well, visible in Defender for Cloud.
Thank you, David. And thank you once again, Safina, for the demo. We're now going to move to our next presentation, which is back to Samba and also to Bindia, which is building a practice with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Over to you. Thank you, Samba.
You're on mute, Samba.
Samba, you're on mute.
Should be better now. All right, so in this section, as you said, we are going to talk about the best practices, but because we also talk a little bit about the different features, I would like to start by talking also about the pricing element, right? And I know a lot of customers are usually saying that there is a different pricing associated with Defender for Cloud, and in Microsoft E5 there are also different pricing and can be confusing, and we get that. So we will really zoom in here on the Defender for Cloud pricing, and then I'll pass the mic over to Bindia, who will really cover the overview architecture and design, the high-level conceptual architecture implementation, and also your questions are welcome here. Bindia is a GBB in our team. She's really having regular conversation with customers, so she can also share the insights from the customer angle, right? So if you log into the Defender for Cloud environment, as Stefina was showing earlier, and if you move to Defender plans, you will see here for Defender CSPM, for foundational CSPM and Defender CSPM, the different pricing that you can enable, and even click on settings if you really want to tailor it to a specific environment, right? So these are the public pricing, and the way the price are calculated are not necessarily the same, right? As you can see here, for Defender's CSPM, for example, you will have $5 per billable resources. If you look at Defender for storage, right, this will be per 10,000 transaction. If you look at Defender for Key Vault, this will be something else. And so usually for customers, that also creates a little bit of complexity, right? When they're asking, okay, so now I want to enable these different Defender plans, but how much will it cost really in my environment? So Safina also showed it earlier. We do have a dedicated workbook that can really help get a better understanding into first the coverage, right, in my environment. So in terms of Defender CSPM, Defender for Server Plan 2, Defender for Container, Defender for Storage, and that first will give this overview into are all my resources covered in Defender CSPM, are all my servers covered, or all my databases covered. So are all my resources as well protected using Defender CSPM. So as you know, workbook are just some reports for us. So all of these different options, this is something that you can click, you can drill in, you can export the data elsewhere if you want. So this section is really on the coverage. Now, if you go on the cost estimation, because that's really what the customers wants to know, right? And so if you look at here, it is the same testing environment as Tafina was showing earlier, and you can really filter down by subscription, by Azure subscription or AWS account or GCP project. Not really the same terminologies that you are using across the different cloud service providers, but it is really pretty much the same concept, right? So then if you look at here, let me just take my laser if I can find it. Yes. So here in this workbook, I really highly recommend you, if you're having any Defender for Cloud engagement or even conversation with customers, is really to say, before we enable this product in your environment, let's just see, how much it will cost, per month. So you can also select here, depending on the Azure plan, if it's Defender for Server Plan 1 or if it's Defender for Server Plan 2, or if it's also a different plan on AWS and GCP. I think it was early in February, we also announced that the new pricing information for Defender for API. So if you're interested, this is also some information that we can share with you. So in my Azure environment, this is really, I can see here that I have 326 billable resources. And if I multiply it by the numbers and the dollar value for the Defender CSPM, then I will see the different numbers per subscription. So in my experience, we also know that usually for customers, you may have a subscription that is attached to one department, and you may have another subscription that is created for other reasons. So it's really good to be able to show the really pricing per Defender plan and also per subscription. Right. So I cannot see the chat window right now, but if you have any questions on the pricing, I will be more than happy to have a look later. So that being said, I want to pass the mic over to Bindia to take us through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Samba. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Bindia Priyadarshini, and I work as a global black belt in Microsoft. I'm located in Netherlands, and I support across EMEA. I'm going to walk you through what best practices we use in our day-to-day basis when we deliver our POCs, and how we try to make the most out of it. This is basically defined into multiple agenda items. We'll look at typical key items from scope and validation perspective, Towards the end of this, when we will also share a qualifier document that we have created for you that will help you qualify a POC, that will help you qualify an engagement, not only from Defender for Cloud perspective, as in very typically the Azure specific ones, but also helping you qualify in a multi-cloud environment. We'll look across high-level conceptual architecture on Defender for Cloud, certain aspects of Defender for Cloud, and how you can make how you can define and bring value to your customers during your POCs, and then very crisp and concise high-level implementation plan, what should look like, what should be highlighted during your POCs. So we'll be covering that. Next slide. Before I get into the process hygiene part of it, know that we also have a blog which is published on the POC best practices material, and it is really very segmented. So you have certain best practices material that are associated to Defender for containers. So it's really workload specific, and then also for Defender CSPM. And then the validation questionnaire, as I said, will be shared with you later. Next slide, please. So from the process hygiene perspective, and I really want to get this out of the way before we get into the depth of each and every workload, is always check for trial, have the trial licenses enabled, and then do the POC on the trial. A very measured and focused way of delivering the Defender for Cloud POCs is to deliver in an agile Scrum methodology, to time box each and every, first of all, define the scope, have a clear definition of done, because that will help you measure. Once you have the measurable KPIs, time box each and every KPIs, board out the actions. We also board out the actions, board out the blockers. This will help you in case if there is really a feature missing or there's a feature gap. It will help you reach out to Samba or to Catherine in order to create feature requests so that you are able to deliver them back. Or also, as Litis said, join the private preview rings so that you can also highlight it to the product managers themselves. So board out your blockers and then deliver on the definition of done, because this is also what we follow from process perspective in order to be on top of what we are delivering and also showcasing the value towards our customers. The time boxing really helps it to keep it within the time period that we want to deliver. Now, particularly talking about the general architecture, right? As you know, that Defender for Cloud is built on top of Azure. So you can monitor and you can protect your on-prem, your EAS, your PaaS, your SaaS services. The pivot of Defender for Cloud is what you see in middle, right? You see the threat intelligence and the security analytics layer that lies eventually in the policy framework and the standards that come out of the Defender for Cloud. These standards very typically going on, you also saw during the demonstration, we said the very typical three that come to mind are, for example, the cloud security benchmarks that come out of Microsoft, the regulatory compliance standards, and then you can also create your own custom standard. And that gives you, as a service provider, the capability to highlight the value to the customer towards a standard-based monitoring, a standard-based detection, which is very unique and very specific to the customer. Also, when you do your multi-cloud onboardings, it is also important to highlight to the customer that when it comes to Azure, of course, Defender for Cloud caters and takes into consideration the Azure SIS benchmarks. But when it comes to multi-cloud and when you are onboarding AWS, you're actually catering to and referencing upon the AWS SIS benchmarks, or the GCP, in case of Google Cloud, the GCP SIS benchmarks. Then we also would want to highlight that as a service provider towards your customers, you can set your custom or built-in policies to run on your management groups, to run across the subscriptions, and even for the entire tenant. And that also later on, when you look towards your production architecture, when you look towards your production rollout, gives you the validity and the view of how you would want to cater to the customer's production architecture the best. Because in most of the cases, you are also the consultant, you are also the advisory who would guide the customer towards this discussion. Very quickly then, the events collected in Defender of Cloud will, they are correlated in the security analytics engine. And with that, they provide you very typical tailored recommendations. And these recommendations are always useful to make sure that your workloads are secure. And for any deviation than the standard, you have a threat detection, you have alerts, and that you are able to keep track of those. So that is what we offer as a part of the general architecture, and it gives you the possible view to showcase both sides of both sides of the coin. So first of all, the collection unit, which is on your left side, where you see all of the collection mechanisms, while when your events are collected into Defender for Cloud, you also see that you are able to extend the capability over REST APIs. You are able to define automation with the help of Logic App integration. You are able to define notifications on top of it as well. Going towards the next slide. So in the next slide, we are particularly talking about the cloud security posture management architecture. Always highlight to your customers that whether or not they are using the free tier of cloud security posture management is always enabled for them, and they don't have to go and enable any plan to make use of it. So this is something which often comes across as a very quick icebreaker, whereby you can very immediately highlight that, hey, dear customer, look, these are the testing scenarios, and these are the secure score recommendations that you're getting, and showcase the value. So this is a good conversation starters. When you look particularly from the architecture, and then I'll go towards the POC best practices. But when you particularly look towards the architecture itself, you are looking at the evaluation of the security posture and the compliance for on-premise, for Azure Cloud and resources in Azure Cloud, as well as resources in the multi-cloud environment, whether it's AWS or GCP. When you start with the POC, it is important we do this as well to ensure that gradually during the Defender CSPM POC, you are driving that the secure score is going up, and you can do so by addressing the recommendations that are being raised, and also highlighting to the customer that you are driving the secure score up. The second capability that comes across very handy and becomes an easy discussion, it becomes an easy value case description, is the use of workflow automation. With this feature, and as Safina showed as well, right, you are able to create automated recommendations, and you can then also test to send recommendations directly to the workload owners. What this does not solve per se immediately something for the customer. This will solve, of course, because you are defining a recommendation. But from a business perspective, the differentiator that you are creating is that you are also ensuring that the workload owner, the business owner, A, has a say in the recommendations, B, is also actionable and accountable for those recommendations. And very often, you will find your cloud security engineers, your cloud center of excellence, your SOC at some point in time being very thankful to you by ensuring that you are bringing the business to be accountable for their workloads as well. So ensure that you are always making use of workflow automation. You are sending the recommendations to workload owners as well. Also, as a part of your Defender CSPM POC, I would suggest that you use so while you are defining your definition of done, right, take very typical use case scenarios validate them. And some scenarios which come very handy to showcase the value immediately are, for example, quickly onboarding the virtual machines, to showcase how the agentless capability is effective and how that works. Validating, for example, the agentless container posture management with Defender CSPM. That is also in case if the customer is using Defender CSPM and is interested in container posture management, that is also a very quick value driver. Then what also helps is that you create governance rules and you use this to assign tasks to the workload owners to remediate the recommendation. Again, bringing and ensuring that the workload owner or the so to say, the BPO, it can just be the IT person, but you are ensuring that the workload owner is also responsible. Sorry. Ideally, you would enable the Defender CSPM plan, be clear of the roles and responsibilities which are needed. So for example, by default, you would need security admin role to enable the Defender CSPM plan. For agentless scanning, you would want to be the subscription owner. So always be clear of the roles and responsibilities that are needed. And after enabling the Defender CSPM plan, always proactively validate the security posture management. And then I also highly recommend using and highlighting other capabilities, right? So agentless scanning for machines, agentless container posture management, then the vulnerability assessments, attack path analysis, because it helps you visualize the risks and threats which are associated to the customer's environment. You saw the Cloud Security Explorer in Safina's demo. That's a very good capability to both from the hunting and also from prevention side, right? Because you are able to query and across various risk scenarios. And then, of course, the governance, very, very important. Now, keeping definition of done in mind, because we have been, the idea always during the POC is to achieve the definition of done. And that definition of done can be divided into must-haves, could-haves, should-haves. And during this, the whole idea is that you are able to achieve those. So keeping that in mind, by the end of the POC, with these guidelines, with this architecture, you will be able to determine the value proposition of the Defender CSPM for your customer. And then also you will be able to proactively mitigate the risks in your customer's environment, which is a very highly appreciated aspect of the POC as well. Moving on to the next slide, we'll talk about the Defender for Cloud CWP aspects, so the platform security around it. Now, let's get the plans off. First of all, you already had a brief of the plans and you understood the pricing associated to it in Samba's presentation. Here, what I want you to understand is that ideally, you would want to see Plan 1 and Plan 2 in this slide, particularly as you see, from IaaS perspective and from PaaS perspective. Now, from IaaS perspective, Defender for Servers is always enabled at the log analytics workspace level and with the related data collection settings. When it comes to Plan 1 and Plan 2, you can enable that only at the subscription level. And the Defender for Servers at log analytics workspace level can be enabled per workspace, so for a single workspace. When it comes to PaaS plans, it will depend. So depending upon the plan, you can enable and disable it at subscription level or at single resource level. So at subscription level, when it comes to subscription level only, then you are looking across app services, containers, key vaults, the resource manager, DNS. But when you are looking at both subscription and resource levels, then you are looking at some additional aspects as well, so such as storage, your SQL, and then your other open source relational databases. In order to then showcase the value of the POC, I would recommend again doing the validation of scenarios with your customers, which would then be the value cell for you and your customer as well. Now, those validations can be highlighting capabilities such as attack surface management, attack surface reduction, just-in-time VM access. You can look at adaptive network hardening. You can look at file integrity monitoring. You can also look at adaptive application controls. Also highlighting the integration with MDE, right? So because we bring those enrichments as well, and then the vulnerability assessment with MDVM. With this, by the end of the POC, you will be able to determine the value of course, the various plans and how they map to your customer requirements, but also you will have an optimum level of threat detection for the servers, which will be a huge value cell for your customer. Moving on, we'll then look at onboarding architecture. And from onboarding architecture perspective, there are various methods of onboarding now. So of course, from onboarding anything in Azure or onboarding of Azure VMs, you are looking at Azure Monitoring Agent. Onboarding non-Azure, we are looking at Azure Arc plus AMA. Ideally, whatever data set that you're going to collect in Defender for Cloud from your Azure virtual machines, your virtual machine scale set, your EAS containers, your on-premise architecture, whatever it is that you collect, the Defender plans will monitor each and every component and will collect the data from your workloads based on these. In addition to that, then we also have the agentless onboarding, which is relatively new now, whereby we allow you to connect your resources, your workloads, your containers, etc., in a more agentless manner. It would be very beneficial that you are able to showcase that to the customer, that you don't provision agents, that you are really defining the capabilities in terms of onboarding of data sets and then validating these data sets against the previous or agreed, the previously agreed definition of done use cases. In addition to the agents, you are also able to collect the data sets over the security components. So in case of some specific, for example, you have the Azure policies for Kubernetes as well. Moving on to the integration architecture. Now, in terms of integration architecture, what we are looking at is how Defender for Cloud would integrate with other products and define value, add value. This is where you would want to highlight to your customers the integration with Defender for Endpoint, for example, whereby you are able to showcase the value of collection of next generation antivirus insights, the integrated vulnerability assessments. So those are aspects that you are able to, and if your customer already has an MDE and it is a part of your POC, the integration is a part of your POC, that is an immediate value drive. The data classification of Azure resources that come out of preview, so that you are able to, for your Defender for Cloud inventory information, you are able to provide the sensitivity enrichment for an asset. You are able to immediately showcase if there is a PII being transacted on an API. So this is the validation that you can immediately highlight, showcase. Then is the Entra part, where you are able to integrate and enrich the permissions management insights in your assessment across the third-party cloud services. So this is not specific for Azure. Only you are able to correlate this, map this, enrich this for your AWS assets, your GCP assets. And very important to also showcase that the recommendations that are related to, for example, let's say PCI in Defender for Cloud portal, are then even the alerts. If you look, for example, very typically, if you take an API alert, and you will see that if there is a particular PCI DSS impact happening, if there's a control breach happening, you will see that mapped. You will see that there is a credit card information which is visible on the data transaction. And that is the value of this integration as well, in terms of whether customer owns an intra-permissions management, they have an additional layer of insights. But if the customer does not own, they'll still get a relative amount of intra-permissions management insights from identity perspective. Then, of course, you can stream your alerts coming from Defender for Cloud to Sentinel, and whereby you are able to investigate, correlate, define the incidents, respond, and remediate against the incidents as well in a much more automated manner. Keep in mind that there is also a bi-directional sync between the incident management of Defender for Cloud and Sentinel, so you are able to investigate the incident in a much more vice versa mode. The Defender for IoT integration that you see there is more of a standalone integration with the product, but it is possible that the OT IoT devices can be onboarded and they will be visible as a part of the cloud portal in Defender for Cloud itself. Then moving on to the next slide. Now on this one, taking from left to right. So we are looking at security postures, we are looking at alerts, we are looking at inventory. Ideally, what you are looking at, what you're going to showcase your customer is the secure score, the recommendations, the compliance data, and that it could be, and these all could be retrieved over the Azure Resource Graph. The Defender for Cloud REST API that is available, it can be used by yourself, and also highlighting this, it can be used within the DevSecOps for data gathering, for configuration of the product as well. And then you have the continuous export feature as well, which will allow you to export data from Defender for Cloud towards your preferred technology. And that could be, let's say, not always, for example, you would come across a customer that is using Sentinel. Let's say you're looking at integration with any other technology, any other SIEM would come handy as well. Moving on to the next one. This is more towards the tenant management and the best practices around tenant management. So when it comes to single tenant, the architecture is very simple. When it comes to multiple tenant, you will be dependent upon Azure Lighthouse to integrate those tenants so that you are able to provide a multi-tenant environment to your customer, or even in case of your MSSP offerings. This would mean that you are step by step gathering the tenant and subscription details. You are defining the roles and permissions. You would then create, for example, a resource manager template, an Azure resource manager template, and deploy the ARM template. And then, very important, you would use the Azure delegated resource management, which is one of the key components here, to set up the cross-tenant management by, and this service will allow you to access the resources by delegating access to the resources on the managed tenants, so that you are able to own the resources from your own tenant, from your parent tenant. In case of multi-tenant environment, this becomes a big value sell. Often this may not immediately be a part of your POC, but during your production deployment, when you will be looking at multiple tenant, you would want to highlight to the customer that the cross-tenant management will enable them to view, to manage the security posture. And then also, as a service provider, you are able to manage the security posture of the resources for multiple customers, right, from within your own tenant itself. And in terms of various security teams to whom you are doing the POC for, you will be able to showcase to them that they are able to manage their security posture right from a single location. So that advances the value cell. These are very typical architectural thought food for thought items that you would want to keep in mind before you go ahead, or also during your POC, so that you are able to deliver a POC with value. Moving to the next slide. Now, this is more of a high-level implementation plan. So this is where a very quick look at how, in general, you would want to, for example, you would want to determine the subscription. You would want to ensure that you have the right roles configured. You would enable Defender for Cloud. You will enable the integration. You will start onboarding based upon the onboarding architecture. Certain dependencies have been highlighted in case of what is needed to onboard which kind of workload. In case of the multi-cloud onboarding, you will enable the connectors relevant to the multi-cloud that you are showcasing during your POCs. Enabling workload protection, ensuring to configure the continuous export, configuring specific workbooks so that you are able to highlight the dashboards and reports. And also you're able to showcase how easily a customer is able to generate a report for any regulatory compliance, because this becomes a value add. Often when we speak with CISOs, compliance is a piece of paper for which any organization pays a lot. So if you really speak to the CISO portfolio, if you really speak to the CIO, compliance is a pain for them. Compliance is a liability because you pay so much to maintain that. What you get out of it is a validation. But the fact is that validation is important and it keeps the business running. And therefore, when you showcase a cloud security center of excellence that, hey, these are the compliance dashboards that for your X number of resources across multi-cloud environment, I am able to generate out of the box, becomes a big value sell. Also highlighting the automation, day-to-day automations that the cloud security engineers, that the SOC can do with the help of logic apps and integration with ServiceNow for the incident management bit as well. So that is what we had for you today from the best practices perspective. Questions?
Thank you, Bindia, and Samba, of course. So in terms of questions, a lot have been answered, Bindia, but just to recap on some, maybe. There was one with regards to, is there anything we need to consider when planning a POC to make moving to production an operation by the client or by an MSSP, i.e., should we do something different if the client is going to manage the MDC or if they will have an MSSP do it?
So often what happens is if the customer does not have a dedicated team, it's best, and this is also something that we see as a red flag. If the customer does not have a dedicated cloud security team, it is better that we let the MSSP do it, because then the MSSP has the skill, has the specialty, and that is that is something we also identify as a red flag. Having said that, there are specific governance in place. There's the reason of automated remediation, the possibility to use logic apps. These are certain handy tools which the customer can use depending upon how big the infrastructure is, how big the environment is, whereby you have a shared responsibility with the customer. But in case of large environments, it is more advised to let the MSSP do it.
Thank you, Bindia. Any final points, Samba, before we indeed move to our next break?
I think it's all good. And maybe one final thought that I can share with the audience is that we have some trainings available. We have the Ninja training if you want to learn more about the different capabilities that we talk about today. And of course, the whole Microsoft team is here to support you. So if whatever you think you might need, if you're working on a customer POC, please just let us know. And as Microsoft, will be able to support you.
Thank you, Samba, and thank you, Bindia. So we are going to have a short break now for 5 minutes, but could I ask, please, Audience, before you go to the break, we do have a survey that we would much appreciate your feedback on the content today, but even more importantly, what you'd like to see in the future from us. So the QR code will be put in the chat. So if you could please answer that whilst you're making your coffee, etc., it really would be much appreciated. So we will see you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. And if you have any last questions you would like to ask the speakers, please do put them in the chat before we wrap up the session. We do have two that are frequently asked that I'd like to ask you, please. So can Sentinel and Microsoft Defender for Cloud share the same log analytics workspace?
Yeah, they can. Absolutely.
Yes.
Perfect. And there is Secure Score in Defender for Cloud and also Microsoft Defender XDR. Are there any plans to consolidate both, please?
I can answer that.
Yeah,
Oh,
good.
Samba, go on.
No, good.
Well, the answer to that is really Microsoft, the new solution that we just released yesterday, Microsoft Exposure, I completely lost my mind, Microsoft Security Exposure Management, yeah. So that's really the idea of, Microsoft having one secure score to be proactive, right? And the whole idea, you have Defender XDR, which is after the fact, knowing what happened after an incident, and it'll give you all of the insight about why it happened and how it happened. The point of this new concept of Microsoft overall security exposure management is to be proactive, to understand really what is the overall score that you have from cloud, from identity, so in the sense, yes, we want to consolidate one single secure score that has an all view of the enterprise posture management.
Thanks, David. If I can pile up on that, I think that feature that David is talking about, the product, the extended security posture management, is really consolidating posture management all across Defender products and XDR. So from a partner perspective for you, you should start thinking about how you would invest in posture management as well, right? So when you think of building managed services as well as value-added services, think of how will you start that process. Starting with the CSPM with Defender is a great place to begin that journey. So start investing and looking at ideas of how you can build your services around the CSPM capability of MTC.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, maybe just to also provide additional details here. So at launch, there will be several solutions that will be integrated, like the vulnerability management, the external attack surface management, the cloud security posture management for Defender for Cloud, the endpoint security, so the device posture management as well will be there, the identity security posture management, the SaaS security posture management, and potentially as well the email OT security. So, but this is at the beginning. The overall goal is really to extend the number of, let's say, solutions that will bring their insight to the exposure management solution.
Thank you all. And a question from Radek. Thank you, Radek. How does the transition look like from Defender for Cloud plus Defender for Endpoint to Sentinel, Microsoft MDR service, and the consolidated database?
I can kind of address that. So the broader vision of the security family of products is to really come back and consolidate as a platform. So you will see this year some of the investments we'll be announcing, maybe around RSA time, that we are really looking at consolidating the platform altogether from a security perspective. So you'll hear more about how that journey will look like in the future.
Thank you, Litus. And I don't think we have any more questions. So on that note, thank you so much for your time this afternoon in joining us, everybody listening. If you didn't have time to complete the survey earlier, could I please ask that you fill it in now so we can continuously provide webinars and airlifts that are really aimed at the topics that you want to hear. And speakers, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And on that note, I would like to wish everybody, depending on where you are in the world, either a good evening, thank you for bearing with us if it's late now, a good rest of the afternoon, or a good rest of the day. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.